Hey guys, tonight we step softly into a time before glass, before steel, before clocks. A time when the Euphrates still whispered secrets between its reeds, and the scent of crushed petals meant more than gold. You're walking through the low, wide streets of Ur, where clay bricks glow warm under a sinking sun, and the air is heavy with heat, dust, and something else. Sweetness? There it is again. A sudden hint of pressed date syrup, maybe. No, wait, rose water? It's hard to tell. You tilt your head. It's like the breeze is teasing you. From somewhere deeper in the city, through the maze of clay homes and open courtyards, something soft and strange is calling your nose. A group of boys run past you, bare feet slapping stone, each with their tunics tied high to keep cool. A woman balances a basket of grain on her head without using her hands, and a temple guard squints at you like he's memorizing your shape. All perfectly ordinary, until you pass the bronze seller's tent. And there it is again. That impossible aroma. Whatever it is, it doesn't belong to iron, sweat, or sheep. It clings to the air like a melody, curling under your thoughts and into your lungs. You follow it, weaving through the twilight crowd. The city is quieter now. Dusk is sacred here. Farmers close their stalls. Palm fronds rustle as if brushing stories from the sky. A priest murmurs to a small bronze idol in a doorway. And you? You're just wandering toward a dream. But this is Mesopotamia. And you probably won't survive this. Not unless you keep your ears sharp, your feet quiet, and your instincts intact, especially when the gods start whispering through smoke and perfume. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere special, tell me your location and the time right now in the comments. You'd be surprised how many night owls find their way back here. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stop outside a small arched entryway just off the main market. No sign, no shouting vendor, just a flickering lamp and a thin trail of smoke curling into the air. You duck under a linen curtain, and you're inside. It's cooler here, shaded, the walls coated in a thin layer of clay to keep the heat at bay. Wooden shelves hold rows of clay bottles, each sealed with wax or linen plugs. Dried herbs hang from cords above, and in the center of the room, sitting cross-legged on a cushion, is the most unimpressed man you've ever seen. His beard is streaked with grey. One eye is slightly more closed than the other. He doesn't look up, just keeps grinding something in a shallow stone bowl. You lost, he mutters without looking. You hesitate, say nothing, just sniff. He glances up, barely. Ah, not lost, just curious. You've got the nose, then. He stands with a creak of old joints and waves a hand toward a battered clay bench. Sit, but don't talk. Not yet. You sit. He lights a small lamp with a practiced flick. The flame is tiny, blue at the base, just enough to warm the bottom of a copper bowl. He adds a pinch of crushed resin and a few drops of oil. The scent that rises is thick, dreamy, like sun-warmed figs and distant rain. Your eyes flutter. That's galbanum, he says, from the mountains. Smells like the breath of an old god after a good meal. You laugh, softly. He doesn't. Your name? He asks. You give it. I'll forget it, he replies, shrugging. We don't use names here, just noses. You spend the next hour in silence, watching him work. He measures not with spoons, but by memory. He times not with clocks, but with the way a drop falls. At one point, he crushes a tiny beetle and explains, casually, that its powder smells like warm leather and almonds. You don't ask how he discovered that. Outside, the sun has vanished. The sound of the city dims to a hush. A baby cries. Somewhere, a reed flute plays. He finally turns to you, passing a small lump of resin across the table. What does this smell like? You hold it to your nose. It's strange, smoky, a little sour, like old paper and fresh rain at the same time. You tell him that. He grunts, nodding. Not bad. You've got the language. That's the trick, you know. Perfume is just memory, dissolved in oil. You remember something when you smell it, even if you never lived it. He leans back against the wall. You'll sleep here tonight. That cot's yours. And tomorrow we begin. Ninsun's priest is coming. He wants a scent that honors her in fire. I've never liked priests, but the temple pays in silver. You raise an eyebrow. He smirks. And besides, sometimes, if you make it right, the goddess comes herself. Just for a whiff. Outside, the stars are bright and brutal above the ziggurat. You lie back on a woven mat. The room smells like dreams and dust. The scent from earlier, the one that led you here, still dances faintly in the corners. And as you drift off, you wonder, what memory have you stepped into? And whose? The scent of sleep still clings to you when morning filters through the reed slats in the window. Pale light slinks across the clay floor, catching on jars and dried petals and the silver edge of a long-forgotten pestle. Somewhere outside, a donkey brays indignantly, as if it too resents waking before the sun's fully risen. You're not alone. The perfumer, you're not quite master, yet not quite stranger, sits cross-legged at the small brazier, coaxing a tiny flame with a bundle of dried tamarisk twigs. He doesn't look up. You're late, he says. There's no clock in this room, no water clock dripping, no hourglass. But somehow, you believe him. You mumble something about not being told when to rise. You were told by the scent, he replies. The charcoal waits for no apprentice. He stands with the stiffness of someone who's seen too many winters and survived all of them out of spite. With a cloth over one hand, he lifts a wide-mouthed clay pot and sets it near the flame. Then he turns to you, finally, his eyes less grumpy now, more calculating. Today we test your silence. You nod. Good, he says, because the nose is a better listener than the tongue. You follow him through the curtain at the back of the shop. The hallway is narrower than you expect, the air dry and cool, the light fading as you go deeper. He hums something low and off-key. You catch the rhythm. 3 notes, then a pause. It repeats. A lullaby. A prayer. At the end of the hall is a rounded chamber. Stone walls, shelves full of tiny bottles, stoppered with wax, clay, and sometimes what looks suspiciously like hardened tree sap. The scent here is different, more potent, less polite. A war of memories and ancient oils. You smell cinnamon, honey, and... what is that? Old leather boots dipped in apricot jam. The perfumer hands you a bottle. Open it. Don't spill. Don't sneeze. And don't lie. You unstopper the bottle. The scent slaps you with childhood memories you don't remember having. It's green and heavy and warm all at once. Something like moss and almonds. Something like the color of new leaves. Something that makes your throat ache a little. You blink. What's it like? He asks, his voice softer now. You say, slowly, like waking up inside a dream that wasn't yours. He pauses, then nods once. Better answer than most. You learn, quickly, that this is not a job for the impatient. Oils take time to warm. Resins need days to soften. Every element has to be paired with another, just like people, so their sharper parts melt away. He tells you about the balance of bass, middle, and top notes, using phrases like the opening dance and the spine of the scent. It sounds less like chemistry and more like matchmaking. He places a bowl in front of you, filled with soft, white paste. Frankincense, he says, scraped from trees in the southern deserts, melts when touched, burns like heaven. You smell it. It's sharp and clean, like breathing in sunlight. Then he adds a drop of something else, something viscous and dark. The scent shifts, becomes richer. He hands you the bowl. You mix it, carefully, slowly. The texture is like thickened honey, and it sticks to your fingers like a stubborn memory. You'll do, he says. Later that afternoon, the curtain lifts. A figure enters, robed in layers of indigo and gold, a priest of the temple, head shaved, eyes outlined in dark kohl, fingers adorned with small obsidian rings. He doesn't speak at first. He walks the room like he owns it, runs a finger along a clay jar, picks up a pestle, sniffs, nods. Then finally he speaks. The festival of flame is in 10 days. Ninsun must be honored with scent, sacred smoke. You will prepare the offering. The perfumer bows, not deeply, and gestures to you. My apprentice begins today. The priest regards you. Young. Good nose. Better than yours, your master says, deadpan. The priest doesn't laugh, but you think you see the edge of a smile twitch at the corner of his mouth. He places a small scroll on the bench. These are the goddess's preferred tones. The rest is your art. But beware. Last year's scent made her angry. You lean closer to the scroll. It's clay, of course, inscribed in the temple's cuneiform. You can make out a few symbols, one for flower, one for flame, and one that looks suspiciously like bull. You're not sure if it's a warning or a recipe. The perfumer waves the priest off with a grunt and unrolls the mat of tools. When the temple door shuts behind him, your master sighs. They never say, please, just demands and curses. You ask if Ninsun really does get angry when a scent is wrong. He shrugs. Historians still argue whether the ziggurat was a temple or an astronomical observatory. But this I know. When the scent's wrong, something shifts. Dogs bark at empty walls, milk spoils, dreams sour. Sometimes people disappear. You stare. He winks, or maybe it's just the heat. You spend the rest of the day crushing petals, straining oils, scraping resin into tiny curled shavings. You bruise your thumb on the pestle, cut your palm on a shard of broken clay. The perfumer doesn't offer sympathy, just a rag and a grunt. By sunset, your arms ache, but your nose has danced through 7 different centuries. A soft lavender paste now simmers quietly in a copper dish. The scent is shy, like a whisper on wet stone. You think the goddess might approve. That night, the sky is a heavy velvet sheet stretched across the rooftops of You sleep on the woven mat again. This time, your dreams carry the scent of cinnamon and fire. And somewhere, beyond the haze of sleep, you hear laughter, soft and golden, like crushed petals on warm wind. The temple sends a runner the next morning, a boy too small for the message he carries, yet too proud to let it weigh him down. His tunic is embroidered with the blue bands of the sacred fire cult, and he announces his presence with the loud, unfortunate voice of someone still learning about volume control. He delivers a sealed wax tablet, stamped with Ninsun's crescent-horned seal. You hear it arrive before you see it, the boy's voice echoing off sun-warmed brick. From the hand of the goddess's breath-keepers to the house of scent. The perfumer groans from the workshop. Gods spare me from the drama of scribes, he mutters, nudging the brazier with his toe. The wax seal is cracked. Inside, a terse note. Your mixture must be ready for scenting the goddess's veil within 6 days. A floral base, a hint of divinity. No repeats of last year. He tosses the tablet onto a basket of herbs, like it's an invoice for stale onions. 6 days, he says, turning to you. Means 5, with 1 day for crying if it fails. You laugh. He doesn't. By noon, you're elbow deep in dried petals, hands sticky with sap, and your hair smells like 3 different gardens had an argument on your scalp. You sort herbs into clay dishes. Rose, saffron, tamarisk, hyssop. The air in the shop grows dense with layered scents, each jostling to be remembered. Your master sets down a bottle sealed with string and red wax. This, he says, almost reverently, is from the temple of Gersu, made by a priestess who died without ever revealing the last ingredient. It's said to call dreams from deep places. You unseal it slowly. The smell that curls out is not sweet, not floral, not anything you can name. It's cool, metallic, and somehow vast, like shadows in a cave you haven't stepped into yet. You say, it smells like thunder with no rain. He grins. You'll survive. You start blending test mixtures. One combination smells like lemon rind and broken pottery, another like a festival gone wrong. A third leaves you sneezing uncontrollably and cursing fig sap. Finally, after hours of careful, maddening work, you produce something soft and lovely, a middle note that sways between crushed chamomile and river moss. You hold it to the perfumer's nose. He breathes in, eyes half close. Better, he says. Still needs breath, still needs soul. You ask what that means. He doesn't answer. Instead, he sends you to the far end of the room, to a storage chest bound with copper bands. Inside, packed in straw, are bottles labelled in smeared ink and half-erased cuneiform. Some labels read like poetry. One simply says, "Don't open unless you hate yourself." You don't open that one. You do find a bottle marked, "Petals from Namu's garden." You ask him if it's real. Namu, the primordial sea goddess whose garden was said to lie beyond time. He shrugs. Could be a lie. Could be driftwood petals soaked in rain. Or could be a piece of the first blooming thing to ever grow on this earth. The fun part is not knowing. As you prepare the next test blend, a strange rhythm starts to settle into your hands. Your motions slow, steady. You measure by scent now, not by spoon. The perfume starts to speak to you. Not in words, but in memories you didn't know you had. A temple courtyard, a field of barley, a blue robe rippling in wind. You blink, shaking your head. You felt it, didn't you? The perfumer says, not even turning around. You nod. He smiles. That's how you know it's waking up. That night, after the lamps are doused and the last ember sighs into blackness, you lie on the woven mat, staring at the cracked ceiling. You dream again. This time, you're standing in a chamber of the ziggurat, but it's not like the one you've seen from a distance. It's made of gold and onyx, and every corner hums with silent music. A woman stands before you, veiled in stars. She raises one hand, and from it a single golden drop of oil falls to the ground. She says nothing, but you smell it. Jasmine, amber, rain on hot stone, something ancient and joyful, and not quite safe. When you wake, your hands still tremble. You write the scent down with shaking fingers, carving it into a scrap of old wax with a reed stylus. You don't tell your master. Not yet. He wouldn't laugh, but he might nod. And that's somehow worse. As you begin the day's work, you catch yourself humming something. 3 notes, then a pause. The same lullaby he hummed on your first day here. Except now, you realize it's not a lullaby. It's a measuring rhythm, one for timing distillations by memory alone. You realize then, he's not just a perfumer. He's a keeper of an older kind of language, one without letters, only scents and silences. Good, he says behind you, not looking up. You're starting to listen. Your 3rd morning begins with smoke, not the gentle curl of incense, but the sour, urgent scent of something overcooked. You leap up from the mat, smacking your ankle on a low bench, and rush toward the back of the shop. The perfumer stands over the brazier, arms crossed, absolutely calm as a shallow puddle. A thin column of grey smoke wafts from a clay bowl that once contained your carefully balanced saffron blend. I stepped away for water, he says with theatrical innocence. You gape at the smouldering wreckage. You let it burn. He shrugs. You can't love something that doesn't break. You resist the urge to hurl a sandal at him. Instead, you sit on the cracked floor and watch the smoke trail up into the rafters. The smell is ruined, sharp, bitter, with a tinge of scorched flowers. Still, underneath it all, a hint of something lingers. Something like resilience. You're learning, he says, pouring water into a new dish. Everything teaches, even failure, especially failure. You're about to reply when the curtain parts. Another visitor. This one is different. A woman, cloaked in green, hood pulled low over her brow. She carries herself with quiet confidence, like someone used to being listened to. She says nothing at first, just lifts a small satchel onto the bench and begins unpacking its contents. Dried petals, deep violet, almost black. A sealed glass vial, a folded piece of linen stained amber at the corners. The perfumer bows slightly. Not deeply, but enough to say he recognizes her. Priestess, he says. You try not to gawk, but you've never seen a temple priestess outside her shrine. She unrolls the cloth and places a small ivory amulet on top, carved in the shape of a lotus, etched with tiny cuneiform markings around the petals. She dreams of the river, the priestess says simply. Your master nods. You blink. The priestess glances at you. The veil must carry her there. You finally ask, who? She and the perfumer speak in tandem. Ninsun. No further explanation. Apparently, gods don't need introductions. The priestess leaves just as silently as she arrived, her scent trailing behind her like a poem. Wet bark, juniper, a whisper of lavender. Your master places the lotus amulet near the brazier. You ask about it. He tells you it's not for show. It's a vessel, he says. Sometimes, when a priestess dreams, the goddess places a vision in her hands. This is that vision. You try not to be intimidated by the implications of carving a scent for a literal deity. Instead, you focus. You begin blending a new base, iris root and myrtle for stillness, coriander for movement, a hint of pine resin to echo the banks of the river. You crush petals with mortar and pestle, letting their oils stain your fingertips. You whisper to the blend, not because it's magical, but because it feels polite. Meanwhile, your master prepares the still. It's ancient, older than he is, possibly older than this shop, a contraption of copper pipes, ceramic coils, and a basin for collecting distilled essence. It hisses softly as he lights the flame beneath it. Today, he says, we summon the river. You tilt your head. Not literally, he adds, though there was that one time. Never mind. You laugh nervously. He hands you a bundle of dried reeds. From the Tigris Delta, he says, soaked in rose water, then dried under the moon. You grind them to powder. The scent is faint at first, earthy, slightly sweet. But when you mix it into a heated oil base, something changes. The fragrance becomes lush, green, and alive, like walking barefoot beside a waterway just before dawn. Now, he says, listen. You close your eyes. The shop is quiet, except for the occasional creak of the wooden beams and the low bubbling of the still. You inhale slowly, and for just a moment, you're not in the shop anymore. You're kneeling at the river's edge, watching fireflies drift across the surface. You can hear frogs chirping and the distant sound of temple drums from the city walls. You touch the water. It's cool, moving gently around your fingers, carrying the smell of papyrus and wet clay. You open your eyes. Your master is watching you. You went there, he says softly. Good. You nod. Then you're ready. He sets out 3 bottles. One contains a thick golden resin, labdanum, he says, from goats who wander through flowering bushes and return with their coats sticky with scent. The second holds a cloudy white oil, pressed from lotus seeds. The third is unlabeled. You ask about it. He taps it gently. The breath of bricks. You raise an eyebrow. It's a phrase, he concedes, but the scent inside is real. Pulled from walls baked in the sun for generations. Has the memory of old temples in it. You add drops from each bottle to your river blend. The scent becomes more complex, deep, mysterious. It's no longer just a fragrance. It's a story. The veil, you realize, will carry a dream not just of water, but of home, of journeys begun and ended, of the goddess who watches from the reeds and knows every stone by name. The perfumer smiles faintly. You're not just mixing oils anymore, he says. You're giving the divine something to remember. By nightfall, your body aches. Your fingers are stained every shade of green and gold, and your mind feels like it's lived 3 extra lives since dawn. You collapse onto the mat, your head full of river songs, and as you drift into sleep, you feel the faintest whisper of a scent on the air. Not one you mixed, but one that finds you anyway. Something like wind through long grass, something like the quiet footsteps of a goddess returning home. You awaken to the sound of dripping water. Not rain. Mesopotamia is stingy with rain. But the steady drip of condensation into the still's collection bowl. Each drop lands with a soft plink, echoing off the clay walls like a metronome for your thoughts. You stretch. Your back pops. Your nose twitches. The shop smells different this morning. Not just the usual mix of resin and herbs. No. Today, there's something new. Something subtle, like morning dew on stone. You rise and follow the scent. Your master is already awake, perched like a thoughtful stork beside the still. He holds up a tiny clay flask, its sides still warm. First drawer of the new blend, he says, voice hushed. She's shy, but she'll speak. You take the flask and carefully unstopper it. The scent is delicate, soft, almost hesitant. You catch river reed, then lotus, then a sigh of sandalwood on the tail end. It's like hearing someone breathe in their sleep. You blink. She smells alive. He grins. Good. You return to your bench and begin cataloguing the rest of yesterday's mixtures, each one labelled in cuneiform shorthand, scratched into strips of palm bark and tied to the necks of little flasks. Some blends are already starting to sour. Others mellow overnight like wine. One mixture has completely separated. The oil sits atop the sediment like it's offended by the rest of it. You call it the divorce blend. The perfumer chuckles. Add that one to the compost pile of broken dreams. By mid-morning, the sun burns white through the reed blinds, and a delivery arrives, a basket of raw ambergris wrapped in goat hide, delivered by a man who smells like 10 camels and hasn't smiled since the last eclipse. You open the package gingerly. The ambergris is waxy, grey, and completely unappealing. It smells like seaweed left in the sun, with a hint of barnyard. You make a face. "Trust me," your master says. "In a few weeks it'll smell like gold-plated sunsets. Everything just needs time." You ask where it came from. He waves a hand. "Somewhere near Dilmun. Or maybe just a clever fisherman in Eridu. Doesn't matter. What matters is what it becomes." You record the date, weight, and quality on a clay tablet, carefully inscribing the cuneiform, while your master whistles something that sounds like a love song to a very patient goddess. Later, as you sift petals from a new delivery of hyacinth and date blossom, a gust of wind lifts the reed blinds. Sunlight spills into the shop, and with it the scent of the city. Smoke, barley, wet brick, camel dung, figs, dried fish, incense, dust, laughter. You pause to breathe it in. "There's perfume in that too," your master says from behind you. "City scent, temple breath. The story of 10,000 lives stirred together." You ask if anyone's ever bottled that, he thinks. "Someone tried once. Sold it to a governor. Smelled like disappointment and overcooked lentils." The work continues. Today's task, fixatives. You learn how to stabilize a scent so it doesn't flee at first breath. Benzoin from Sumatra, frankincense from the southern lands, styrax extracted from tree bark that only bleeds when wounded, just so. As you heat the fixatives over charcoal, your master tells you a tale. "Once," he says, "a high priest tried to create a perfume that could control dreams. Said he'd smelled it in a vision, something so powerful it made kings forget their thrones." You raise an eyebrow. "What happened?" "He overboiled the sandalwood and passed out. When he woke up, he said he saw the goddess laughing." You both laugh, but a part of you wonders, what if it was true? By late afternoon, your hands are sticky with resin, and your arms ache from stirring oils in slow, meditative spirals. The scent in the shop thickens, grows heavier, like velvet woven from sunlight. The perfumer sits beside you and pulls out an old clay box. Inside are 20 tiny vials, stoppered with wax and sealed with colored threads. He unties the black thread on the first one and opens it. You both smell. It's sweet. Too sweet. Like someone dunked a fig in honey and lit it on fire. "That," he says, "was my first attempt." You go through them one by one. Each scent tells a story of failure, learning, stubbornness. There's the one that smells like panic and clove, another like funeral incense. One, bizarrely, smells like a goat wearing lipstick. But the last vial, threaded in deep violet, makes your breath catch. You unstopper it. And suddenly, you're in a garden at a twilight. The air is warm. The flowers are closing for the night, releasing their final breath. There's laughter somewhere nearby. A festival. Candles flickering. A fruit sliced open on a golden plate. It smells like the moment right before joy spills over. You whisper, "What was this?" He looks away. "That one. I never gave it a name. It just arrived one night after a very good day." You want to ask more, but don't. Some perfumes speak louder in silence. As the sun slips below the roofline, you finish bottling today's blend. You cork the tiny flasks, seal them with wax, and mark each with a line of cuneiform. River Dream 1, Veil Offering 2, Third Breath 3. Outside, a temple bell rings once, low and long. The goddess is listening. That night, you fall asleep with traces of scent still clinging to your wrists. In your dreams, you're kneeling again at the river. But this time, you're not alone. A woman with eyes like storm clouds sits beside you. She dips her fingers into the water, and when she raises them to your face, you inhale a fragrance you've never smelled before, but somehow already love. You wake with the scent still in your nose. It's soft, oceanic, threaded with something metallic, like blood or bronze or the inside of a temple door. And it's not just in your dream anymore. It's in the air. You sit up slowly, expecting to find your master already at work. But the shop is quiet, still. Morning hasn't fully breached the blinds yet, just pale streaks of light crawling across the floor. For a moment, you wonder if it's too early or too late. Then you hear the humming. Not music, not a tune, just a low, steady sound deep in the chest and throat. It's coming from the roof. You climb the ladder. There, seated cross-legged among drying herbs and flower garlands, is your master. Eyes closed, hands resting on his knees, humming. The roof garden is cooler than the shop. You hadn't realized how much grew up here. Mints, thymes, lemongrass, calendula, even some struggling fig trees hunched in cracked ceramic pots. Vines stretch across the walls like lazy scribes. Bees drift, uninterested in either of you. You wait in silence until he opens one eye. "You ever hum to your work?" he asks, voice gravel-soft from sleep or smoke. It helps them grow straight. You think he means the plants, but it's never just that with him. "I had a dream," you tell him. He nods. "Me too. Was it the river?" You shake your head. "It was her, the goddess. She touched my face. I smelled." You pause, struggling to name it. "Something impossible." He smiles faintly. "Ah, she's interested in you now." You're not sure if that's good news. Back downstairs, you begin cleaning the flasks, a task that would be tedious if not for how much memory clings to glass. You recognize traces of lavender, frankincense, and one very unfortunate combination that smells like fermented sandals. You give that one a wide berth. Today, you're told, you're going to the market. You brighten. Not just to shop, though. You're delivering a small consignment of perfumes to a noblewoman across the canal. You pack the flasks carefully in a reed-woven basket, cushioning them with shaved date husk. Each bottle is sealed with wax and marked in cuneiform, like tiny scrolls with a secret. As you step into the street, the city greets you like a cat, aloof but familiar. Nippur pulses with the morning. Street vendors shout half-heartedly. A man with a cart full of onions argues with a boy holding too few shekels. A fishmonger waves a knife at no one in particular. Children kick a clay ball between their sandals. A priest smears ashes in a circle around a temple column. A goat, of course there's a goat, follows you halfway across the plaza before being distracted by a fruit peel. You reach the noblewoman's house by mid-morning. It's massive, 2 stories high with whitewashed walls and a central courtyard shaded by a fig tree. A servant leads you inside. You're told not to speak unless spoken to. Your mouth dries instinctively. But the noblewoman isn't what you expect. She's young, maybe 20, and barefoot. She's sitting beside a small fountain, plucking petals from a rose and letting them float across the surface. When she looks up, her eyes are calm, but alert, like a cat about to decide whether to purr or scratch. "You're the apprentice," she says. You nod. Words seem both too much and not enough. She gestures for you to come closer. You place the basket at her feet and begin to lift out the flasks. She watches your hands with curiosity. "Which one is for dreaming?" she asks. You pause, then choose third breath 3. She unstoppers it and inhales deeply. Her eyes close. A long silence. When she opens them, she doesn't speak for a moment, just tilts her head slightly, like she's listening to something very far away. Then, "This one remembers something I forgot." You're not sure how to respond, so you don't. She waves her hand, dismissing the servant. Then she leans forward and says, in a quieter voice, "Do you know what dreams smell like?" You shake your head. She smiles. "Sometimes they smell like the city, other times like things that never were. My sister once dreamt of blue fire. I dream of doors." She pauses, holding the bottle between her palms, like it's fragile. "Tell your master he has my thanks." You nod, relieved. You're about to back away when she adds, "Oh, and tell him." She walks again. You blink. But before you can ask who she is, the servant returns and gestures you out. You're halfway back across the canal when you realize you didn't say a word during the whole exchange, and yet somehow everything important was communicated. Back at the shop, your master is grinding frankincense resin into powder with a stone pestle. "She liked it," you say. He nods. "She said something strange. She said—" She walks again. He stops grinding. Then slowly he sets the pestle down. "She," he repeats. She walks again. You ask who. He looks out the window. "Ninsun," he says quietly. Or maybe Inanna. Maybe both. Dreams aren't very good at being specific. You sit with that for a while. He resumes grinding. The scent of frankincense blooms in the air, lemony, pine bright, with a whisper of church bells and sunlight. That night, as you lie on your mat, exhausted but full of wonder, you don't even try to fall asleep. You just breathe, letting the smells of the day wash over you. Resin, dust, jasmine, honey, memory. And eventually, without realizing, you drift. The dream is slow to arrive tonight. First, it coils around your limbs like warm mist. Then, gradually, it pulls you into the depths of it. Not like falling, but like sinking into layers of soft linen. Somewhere in the distance, a river murmurs. A voice hums a lullaby that sounds half like a spell and half like a nursery rhyme. And then you're back in the shop. Only, it's not quite the shop. The walls are taller, the shadows are deeper. Every flask glows faintly from within, like tiny moons corked in glass. The air is thicker, not unpleasant, but scented with impossible combinations: clove and lightning, saffron and memory, cedar and starlight. You walk barefoot. The tiles beneath your feet feel warm, as if they remember the sun. From behind a curtain of dried lotus stems, your master steps out. But he's younger, or maybe just different. His eyes shine with something playful, something ancient. "I've been waiting," he says. "We have work." You follow him through the shop, but it stretches into a temple now. The still is now a brazier. The reed shelves have become alabaster ledges. The perfume flasks are inscribed with shifting symbols you don't quite understand. He hands you a scroll made of something that feels like skin, but shimmers like river water. You look down. The symbols crawl and reshape. You can't read it, but somehow you know what it means. "Today," he says, "we recreate the perfume of the stars." You blink. That's not in any of the records. You say as much. "No," he replies, because it hasn't happened yet. And with that, the dream begins to dissolve, like oil dispersing in water. You try to hold on, try to stay, but it slips, and you wake. A hand is gently shaking your shoulder. Real light spills in from the open window. The street beyond is loud, cranky, full of donkeys and breakfast vendors. But in here, the air holds one final trace of that dream scent, starlight and cedar. "You're going with me today," your master says, already halfway into his travelling robe. You sit up, groggily. "Where?" he grins. "Where they grow dreams." You assume he's being poetic. He isn't. You pack lightly, just a few tools, a pouch of resin, and a notebook. The master brings a sealed clay jar marked in cuneiform. "Don't drop." That's it. That's all it says. You cross the city on foot, then board a flat-bottomed boat moored at the canal edge. The boatman looks like someone who hasn't smiled since he was born, but he accepts your fee and pushes off without comment. The canal is quiet today, unusually so. Dragonflies skip over the water. Papyrus rustles along the banks. You pass priests washing their hands, farmers washing their feet, and one very sleepy dog sunbathing on a date crate. After an hour, you turn onto a side canal. The city thins, the noise fades. Palm groves replace rooftops. Water wheels creak lazily in the distance. Somewhere, a woman sings while shelling beans. And then you see it. A compound, not large but elegant. Mud brick walls coated with lime plaster. Carved doors, each inset with blue lapis and glass. A garden spills over the walls. Grapes, lavender, henna, even cinnamon trees. Though you're not sure those are legal this far north. The air is sweet, not cloying, sweet like honesty. "This," your master says as you step ashore, "is the garden of Tiamat." You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. "Just what they call it." A woman meets you at the gate. Her robe is dyed with indigo and patterned with golden fish. Her hair is braided with silver cords. She smells like rain in the desert. She nods to your master, then turns to you. "You're the dream sniffer," she says. You blink. Maybe." She leads you into the garden without another word. Inside, everything breathes, not literally, but close. The plants sway in a wind that doesn't exist. The air is warm and dense, and every breath feels like it lingers in your lungs longer than it should. Butterflies flit between blossoms. Bees hum in circles, but never bother you. You pass rows of calendula, trays of drying myrrh, beds of soft moss, crusted with white crystals. You see a tree with bark so dark it looks blue, its leaves tiny and sharp. The woman picks a single blossom and crushes it between her fingers. The scent hits you like a memory you forgot to make. Smoke. Apples. A kiss on the back of your neck. "What is that?" you whisper. "Fever blossom," she replies. "Only grows here. Only opens its petals once a month." You nod, afraid if you speak again, you'll ruin the moment. They lead you to a pavilion at the center of the garden. Under it, a table of ivory stone. Dozens of small bowls, spoons carved from river shell. A map of the garden is etched into the floor. Your master unseals the clay jar. Inside is a lump of translucent resin the size of a child's fist. "From Mari," he says, "harvested under a blood moon." He breaks off a piece, hands it to you. You place it in the first bowl. The woman sprinkles crushed hibiscus over it, then a spoonful of lemon balm, a splash of warm fig milk. You mix gently, watching the colors bleed together. Ruby into honey, milk into fire. The scent rises. It smells like laughter in a thunderstorm. You add more, mint, dried rose, something sharp and peppery that makes your eyes water. And you realize this isn't just perfumery. It's worship. Some say this garden was built where Tiamat fell, the woman murmurs. Others say it's where she weeps. Either way, her tears grow well. You don't know whether to nod or kneel. You work until sunset. The final blend is bottled in a glass vial, shaped like a teardrop. You hold it up. And for a moment, it glows. Not metaphorically. Actually glows. Your master takes it from you with reverence, tucks it into his robe, thanks the woman with a bow, deeper than you've ever seen him give anyone. And as you board the boat again, you realize your hands are trembling slightly. You ask your master, "What did we just make?" He doesn't answer, just says, "We'll know when it's worn." And the river carries you home. The vial lives on the highest shelf now, wrapped in linen, resting on a cushion of soft moss. No label, no seal, no name. Just the faintest shimmer beneath the glass, like a heartbeat trapped in amber. You're not allowed to touch it. Not until it asks, your master says, which somehow makes less sense the longer you think about it. Instead, he has you catalogue the rest of the garden hall. You record herbs with names that sound like poems: dreamleaf, whisper root, morning vine. Each one is pressed between sheets of waxed bark and entered into the scroll ledger in your increasingly legible cuneiform. Side note, your wedges are still a little fat and your spacings uneven, but compared to your first week, it's practically royal scribe work. You ask the master about the resin from Mari. He tells you it came from a tree that only leaks when frightened. You pause. That's not a real thing. Neither is smell, he counters, but it controls more decisions than law. He's not wrong. That night, you watch the oil lamp burn low, casting tall shadows that flicker like they're whispering secrets to each other. The city outside is still, but you hear music. Distant drums, maybe, or the low hum of a reed flute played under moonlight. The next morning, you wake to a visitor. Not unusual in itself. The shops become increasingly popular, but this one wears robes too clean for the street and speaks with the careful vowels of someone used to being obeyed. She doesn't give a name, only a coin, polished silver, pressed with a winged lion on one side and a single cuneiform glyph on the other. The master reads it and stiffens, just slightly. She wants a private blend, he tells you afterward. You raise an eyebrow. She, in this case, is the high priestess of Inanna's northern shrine. Apparently, she heard about the noble woman's experience. Word travels fast in temples, even faster than scandal or goats. She says her dreams are cloudy, he continues, wants clarity. You're not sure what that means, but it sounds like a polite way of saying, she's having visions and wants us to bottle them. So you begin preparing. This isn't a normal blend. No base of pressed olive oil. No thick stabilizers. She wants something ephemeral, vaporous, something to inhale only once and understand something she didn't before. You're told to start with blue lotus, the real kind, imported. Price, a month's wages. You steep it gently in warmed water until the petals soften and give up their secrets, smelling of wet sky and parchment and the soft fuzz behind a newborn's ears. Next comes cinnamon bark, less for scent, more for structure. Then a rare oil made from fermented barley shoots. It smells sharp, then sweet, like stone turned to honey. Why barley, you ask? Because it remembers, the master replies. One of your earliest lessons. Barley is older than kings. People built temples out of clay, but they built civilization on cereal. As you mix, you catch a new scent, one not on your list, You look up. Your master is holding a vial, not the one from the garden, but nearly as old. He uncorks it with something like reverence, just a drop, onto the edge of your blend. The scent rises. It smells like bronze mirrors and firelight and the moment before lightning. What is that? He smiles faintly. Sun tears. You wait. Eventually, he explains. Collected from the ziggurat at Sippar during the midsummer solstice, when the priests burned cedar resin on the rooftop. The droplets clung to the eastern walls. You blink. But that was 20 years ago, he nods. Still strong, because it was made with ore. You inhale again, and understand. It's not just about the ingredients. It's about the moments. Some scents are built, others are captured. You finish the blend just before dusk. The priestess arrives precisely on time. She does not speak. She sits in the corner on a low cushion, eyes half closed, fingers pressed together in a silent invocation. You offer her the vessel. She holds it above her brow, inhales once. Long, slow, reverent. And then opens her eyes. You've never seen eyes look like that. Widened, not in fear, but in knowing, like someone who's just remembered the answer to a question they didn't know they had. She speaks a single word. North. Then she stands. She leaves without a bow, without payment. Only the silver coin remains, still warm on the counter. You pick it up. The winged lion looks different, like it's blinking. Your master puts a hand on your shoulder. She'll dream well tonight. And somehow, you know she will. That evening, over chickpea stew, he tells you another secret. Some say scent is the only sense that bypasses logic, goes straight to memory. Straight to the gods. He leans back, sipping tamarind tea. Maybe that's why they want it now. Dreams are changing. The gods are restless. You think of the vial on the top shelf, still glowing faintly, still waiting. And in your sleep that night, someone calls your name. Not your given name. Your scent name. The one no one has spoken yet. But you recognize it. And you answer. The name lingers in the air like smoke, soft, curling, almost lost. You wake with it pressing gently at the edges of your mind, a feather touch you can't quite grasp. Today, the city is humming differently. Not louder, but quieter, like a secret everyone is trying not to share. You step out, senses sharpened by the scent that clung to your dreams. The marketplace unfolds before you, woven baskets piled high with dates, fishnets drying on wooden beams, and stalls brimming with pomegranates, bursting ruby red. The merchants' calls are softer, slower, as if conserving breath. You pass by a group of women weaving palm fronds, their fingers moving in rhythmic silence. You pause, mesmerized by the dance of light on their dark hair. Your master waits for you by the canal. We need to visit the scribe, he says. You follow him through twisting alleys and over narrow bridges until you reach a low building nestled beside the water. A scriptorium filled with the smell of wet clay tablets and ink. Inside, an elderly man with cloud-white hair greets you. He runs a finger over a half-finished tablet inscribed with cuneiform, then smiles. You bring the perfume of stars, he says, voice cracking like dry earth. You hand over a small vial, the teardrop bottle from the garden. He nods gravely and begins to work. Using a stylus, he traces the scent's composition in cuneiform, layer upon layer of symbolic notation, mixing technical details with poetic descriptions. You watch as the tablet takes shape. Descriptions of fever blossoms, sun tears, and the elusive barley memory. Historians still argue whether scent notation was purely practical or a form of mystical poetry. As he works, the scribe tells you a curious story. Long ago, a perfumer tried to capture the essence of a dream so vivid it almost walked off the page. He mixed frankincense with lotus and a pinch of nightshade, an act so bold that some say the mixture called forth a spirit, or perhaps a god, to bless the creation. Whether true or legend, the tale lingers in the scent of old scrolls and whispered prayers. You can't help but wonder if your master's new blend might carry some of that same magic. When the tablet is complete, the scribe seals it with a drop of hot wax, stamped with the symbol of the goddess Nasaba, the patron of scribes and knowledge. "Guard this well," he says, handing it to you. "It holds more than words." On your way out, you notice the scent of crushed mint and warm clay mingling in the air, a reminder of the earth and the breath of the city. Back at the shop, you unroll the tablet carefully and lay it beside the glowing vial. The two seem to pulse in quiet conversation, words and scent intertwined like threads in a tapestry. Your master watches you, eyes twinkling. "Dreams are stories," he says, "and stories are memory. You think of the noble woman's words. She walks again. Who was she? And what did the dream mean?" Historians still debate whether some ancient perfumes were created for ritual or for pleasure. Maybe, you think, the answer lies somewhere in the scent between the two. Later, as dusk falls, you light a small fire of cedar and myrrh on the rooftop. You close your eyes and breathe deep. The smoke curls around you, carrying the weight of stories, dreams, and secrets. The city hums below. You are part of something older than the river, older than the ziggurats. You are a keeper of whispers. And the night holds its breath. The night deepens with a cool, gentle breath that drifts through the open window and carries the scent of faraway dates and distant water. You find yourself drawn again to the vial on the highest shelf, the glowing teardrop that seems to pulse with a quiet life. Your fingers itch to touch it, but you resist, remembering the master's words, not until it asks. Instead, you decide to explore another facet of your craft. Today, you'll visit the perfumer's secret library. Hidden beneath the city in winding tunnels, the library holds ancient scrolls and fragments of tablets, some so fragile they seem more like dreams than records. Your master leads the way through a narrow stairway carved into mud brick. The air grows cooler and dustier. You hear the distant drip of water echoing through the stone halls. Inside, hundreds of scrolls sit in cedar shelves, their edges curled and cracked. The faint scent of papyrus and resin fills the air, a fragrance both grounding and otherworldly. You pick up a scroll labeled Sacred Scents of the Anunnaki. Historians still argue whether the Anunnaki were divine beings, ancient astronauts, or simply stories woven through time. Regardless, their influence on perfume rituals is undeniable. The scroll describes how scents were used to connect with the gods, how priests burned incense to open doors between worlds. There's mention of a rare mixture called Heaven's Breath, made from cedarwood, juniper, and a mysterious plant known only as shadow leaf. You read on, captivated by descriptions of offerings made at ziggurat summits, where smoke and scent blended with sunlight to create ephemeral bridges to the divine. As you study, a small vial slips from the scroll's folds. Inside, a residue of dark oil clings to the glass. Your master recognizes it instantly. "It's from the shadow leaf," he whispers, almost lost to time. You carefully add a drop to your notebook's sample jar, marveling at the rich, smoky aroma that follows, a scent like twilight wrapped in velvet. Suddenly, footsteps echo down the hallway. A figure emerges, a young apprentice, with a grin as sharp as a reed knife. "I heard you were here," they say, voice light but eager. They hold out a folded paper, a new scent formula, never before recorded. The apprentice explains that it's from a distant village along the Euphrates, a blend designed to capture river fog and early morning light. You inhale the paper's edges, and the scent transports you. Cool mist rising over fertile fields, dew glistening on grain stalks,
and birdsong weaving through date palms. It's breathtaking. You and the apprentice spend hours discussing the mysteries of scent, how it weaves through memory, myth, and magic, how a single whiff can spark a forgotten moment or ignite a new dream. By the time you leave, the tunnels are swallowed by darkness. Above ground, the city sleeps beneath a blanket of stars. You carry the secret scents with you, tucked safely in your heart and your satchel. Back at the shop, you wonder if the glowing vial is waiting for one more drop, one final ingredient to complete its story, one that only you can find. The morning dawns slow and soft, with a pink haze washing over the riverbanks and reeds swaying gently in the breeze. You find yourself restless, as if something unseen is nudging at the edges of your thoughts, pulling you toward the unknown. Your master greets you with a curious smile, as if he too senses the stirring. "Today," he says, "you'll walk where few dare, the gardens of the palace. Not the lush courtyards of royalty you might imagine, but the hidden green heart of the city, tucked behind towering mud brick walls and guarded by watchful servants. This is where the nobility cultivate rare and precious plants, remnants of far-off lands and forgotten seasons. As you enter, the scents hit you like a gentle wave, honeyed dates mingling with the earthy musk of wet soil, the spicy sharpness of pomegranate blossoms, and the delicate sweetness of freshly cut jasmine. You wander along narrow paths lined with rows of herbs and flowers, many labeled with small clay tags inscribed in neat cuneiform. Your fingers brush against lavender and myrrh, and you catch the faint aroma of saffron drifting from a distant corner. Your master stops beside a twisted fig tree, whose branches stretch like ancient arms toward the sky. "This tree is said to be older than the city itself," he whispers. "Some believe it was planted by the first king of Uruk." You touch the rough bark and feel the pulse of centuries beneath your fingertips. The garden holds more than plants. It holds stories of royal processions, secret meetings, whispered prayers. You pause at a stone basin filled with water lilies, their pale pink petals floating serenely atop the dark surface. Legend has it that the lilies are sacred to Inanna, goddess of love and war. As you inhale their scent, you imagine the goddess herself walking these paths, her presence a soft glow in the early morning light. Nearby, a small fountain trickles water into a mosaic basin, the gentle sound blending with the distant calls of fishermen on the river. You notice a solitary figure tending the garden, a woman whose face is partially hidden beneath a veil embroidered with silver threads. She works with care, plucking herbs and arranging them in a woven basket. You offer a greeting, and she smiles, a rare and warm gesture. She introduces herself as the palace perfumer, keeper of royal scents and secrets. She explains how each plant is chosen not just for fragrance, but for its symbolic power, how certain blooms are thought to bring protection, others to inspire dreams. She invites you to help prepare a small blend, a simple mix for a royal feast that evening. Together you crush rose petals and sprinkle crushed saffron into a bowl of oil, then add drops of bitter almond extract. She tells you that the royal family believes scents can protect against evil spirits and bring good fortune. You notice a small jar beside her, filled with golden resin, thicker and darker than anything you've seen. "This is my secret," she confides, "a gift from the mountains, said to be tears of the gods." Historians still debate whether resin was valued more for its scent or its supposed magical properties. You wonder if this resin could be the missing ingredient your master hinted at. As the sun sets and the feast begins, the palace fills with rich aromas, spices, roasted meats, and the faint whisper of your blend. You watch from the shadows as nobles raise their cups and laugh beneath hanging lanterns, their faces glowing in firelight. A distant melody drifts through the air, a soft lyre song that seems to carry the weight of ancient prayers. You feel the pulse of history and mystery entwining, and you realize that every scent you craft is more than a fragrance. It's a story waiting to be told.